Hello everybody and welcome to another Twilight Zone review. Today it's Season 2, Episode 23, 100 Yards Over the Rim, written by Rod Serling and starring Cliff Robertson as Christian Horn. And the first thing I'll say is we get yet another time travel episode. But if you're going to keep doing time travel episodes, at least put interesting twists into them and do them well, and this episode does that. So this is a solid episode overall. So we start out with some pioneers, I guess you'd call them, in stagecoaches, and it's Christian and his wife and a group of other people, and they're heading to some new destination or horizon or something, and we find out that Christian's son isn't well, and if he doesn't, get some kind of medicine, he will probably not make it. And the other men and their families on the trail want to head back because they don't think there's any way they're going to make it where they're supposed to be headed. But Christian, who they call Chris, wants to keep going forward. He says, just let me go over this rim that's out in the distance and see if I can find, anything promising for us. So Chris does go over the rim. And of course, he goes into the future because this is Twilight Zone. But in this case, it's interesting, so that's fine. So he's looking around for quite a while. And, he sees a lot of things he doesn't understand. The main thing that happens is he gets startled by a truck, and he has a gun with him, and he accidentally shoots himself in the arm. So, now he's wounded, but not badly, it doesn't appear. And he keeps walking. He sees a sign for a cafe. So he figures, he'll go there. There's a man outside the cafe, and Chris asked the man if he saw the monster, that startled him, that came after him. And the man says, you mean a truck? So the guy is starting to think that Chris is a little strange, and you can't really blame him. And you can tell that Chris is completely confused at this point. So he goes inside, and the man, his name is Joe, I believe, has his wife look at him. She has some type of assistant nursing experience or something. So she looks at the wound, and in the meantime, the man is interested in Chris's gun, but Chris is very leery of these people, which also makes sense. So it's realistic on both sides. And he kind of pulls away from the man. And there's some good tension in this scene. It's pretty well acted, and I would say it's pretty realistic and believable. So Chris is kind of explaining where he's from, but it's very vague, and just nobody's really sure what's going on either side. And things come to a head when the woman brings out some drugs. I think it's penicillin, and she explains they may help him, with his wound. And, so he discovers that. And, they're still talking, and he sees a calendar, and it says the year is 1961. And he says, how can that be when the year is 1847? So he's more confused than ever, and they, of course, think that this guy's probably not all there. So they call in a doctor to see him, and the doctor says he has malnutrition, but other than that, he seems to be rational. He doesn't think he's, completely crazy. He says he's filling out his story, better than a real person could fill out their life. But he comes to the conclusion it must be, he must be somewhat delusional, because obviously, people don't travel in time. And this part was a little bit odd. The doctor says he's rational, but then he's delusional. Like, that part was a little confusing, and it seemed kind of shoehorned in the episode and not really necessary, but it's no big deal. So Chris comes out when they're talking about him, and he says that he read in an encyclopedia, which of course just happened to be in the room where he was, that he saw his son became a pioneer of research, some type of doctor, I think an MD. And so obviously, his son made it. He lived, and he knows that was his son, and now he figures there was a reason he was there, but he's not sure what it was. So now he wants to leave and get back on his way, and the doctor and the couple from the bar want him to stay there because they have called the authorities to come and get the guy some help. I'm not sure what they think that they're going to do, but that's a whole nother story. So Chris hits the guy in the stomach and runs out, and we do see the authorities come in a police car, and they run after him. And as Chris is running, he happens to go back to where he started from, and he goes over the same rim, and he's back in his time, with his wife and the other travelers, only he has the medicine on him. So obviously he can use the medicine to cure his son, and that was the reason that he went forward in time, so his son would live and accomplish the important things he's supposed to accomplish. So that's cool, even if there were a few plot contrivances to get there. So, he talks about how, one of the men says, "What did you see on the other side? It doesn't look like there's anything there." And Chris explains how there's a lot of things there, and this is actually a very optimistic view of the future. In modern times, we get a lot of pessimistic views of the future, so it's nice to get an optimistic view because Chris knows that his son is going to go on to do good things and that there'll be hope for mankind in the future. So I really like that twist on the episode, and I kind of wish the episode would have ended there, but it keeps going, and we go back to the diner, and the man and his wife are there talking, and the man explains how he found the gun, but it looks like it's been in the desert for 100 years or so. So they conclude that maybe he did come from another time, in place, so they're satisfied with that. And we end with Chris and all the other pioneers moving on, and we get the ending narration. But I'm not sure that we needed these last two scenes. The other scene with Chris, where he was talking about the future, was more powerful, and I would have preferred it to end there. But it gives closure to both storylines this way, so that's fine too. Overall, this is a very solid episode with some minor issues that I already explained, and I give 100 Yards Over the Rim a 3.5 out of 5. Definitely worth watching this one. A 3.5 out of 5 for 100 Yards Over the Rim. And as always, thanks for watching.